the heart of really what we come to do well is understand our clients.
Understanding what the needs of the family are.
Help them make some decisions.
Preparing the next generation for what's to come.
Being on a first-name basis, getting to know their stories.
Working through their questions, their concerns, and figuring out the solution that's best.
They trust us enough to come in and help them solve that.
You really feel at the end of the day when you add value, there's a great sense of accomplishment and reward.
Henry David Thoreau once said, "It's not what you look at that matters, it's what you see." In managing wealth, there's an awful lot to look at. Taxes and trusts, family meetings and bonds, and everything in between. It's why we rely on those who know each of these fields so deeply that they can see where others are merely looking, who can focus on what's best for clients over generations. After all, that's what expertise is.
Hi, my name's Paul Massara from Arrowfield Stud, and we've been using the Equiloom masks generally on our dry mares, but also on some of our maidens as well. We find the Equiloom to be a very useful operational tool. It allows us to have the mares out in the paddocks and roaming freely, not having to bring them into barns. There are also some financial benefits. Obviously there's no stable bedding, the excess staff used, and obviously transporting the horses in and out on a daily basis. That can be time consuming, and this is money I think well spent to save in those operational procedures.
My racehorse has had obviously tremendous success. Authentic being the first one to take us and winning the Derby in our first try, which doesn't get better than that.
Authentic has won the Kentucky Derby!
I will tell you that there's nothing like watching a horse that you own turn for home and come down the stretch with a shot to win.
The opportunity is here to get a part of this wonderful sport.
We're really big fans of My Racehorse.
Hi, my name is Gary Falter with the Jockey Club. I'd like to welcome everyone back to today's virtual online panel. And as you know, we've taken a short break from the monthly online series to focus our attention on the in-person owner conference that took place in late July at Saratoga Racecourse. Our thanks to those of you that attended the Saratoga conference and helped make it such a success. The amount of networking and the new friendships that were formed is something we just can't replicate any other way. And if you were not able to attend the Saratoga conference, we have all the videos of each of the 8 panels available on OwnerView.com. And today we have a panel of 5 outstanding owners that were all recipients of the OwnerView New Owner of the Year Award. Each of these panelists have had great success, and we'll talk about their journeys into ownership. If you're viewing the panel live and have a question, please use the Q&A button at the bottom of your Zoom screen. And at the end of the panel, we'll field as many of your questions as time allows. The Owner Conference Series is hosted by the Jockey Club and the Thoroughbred Owners and Breeders Association. And I'd like to recognize all of our sponsors, starting with the presenting sponsors, Bessemer Trust, Dean Dorton Equine, and Stoll Keenan Ogden. And today's panel is sponsored by Equiloom and My Racehorse. Our sincere thanks to all the sponsors for their continued support of thoroughbred ownership. We hope you enjoyed today's panel, and our moderator is Horse Racing Radio Network founder, Mike Penna. Thank you, Mike, for being with us today, and please take it from here.
Oh, thanks, Gary. And I want to welcome everybody back to the 2022 Virtual Thoroughbred Owner Conference Series. I'm Mike Penna, president of HRN, as Gary referenced, and this is the 5th panel in a series of 7 panels taking place this year. Each year, OwnerView names an owner or an owner group that has experienced tremendous success in our sport, even though they were very new to the sport and to the industry. Well, today's panel features 5 owners that were recipients of OwnerView's New Owner of the Year Award. And with us today First and foremost is Saul Kuman, who was the new owner of the year in 2015. And we're going to go in chronological order here. So Saul received that honor in 2015. If you don't know Saul, he races under the name of a few different stables, including Madikit Stables. Jamie Roth is with us as well. She is the new owner of the year in 2016. Jamie races with her family under the name of LNJ Foxwoods. Gary Palmisano is with us. He's the new owner of the year in 2018. Gary oversees the operations of the Churchill Downs Racing Club. Michael Behrens is here. He is the new owner of the year from 2020. Michael is the founder of My Racehorse. And Patrick O'Neill is also with us, the new owner of the year last year in 2021. Patrick is one of the partners in boat racing. Two additional new owners of the year were unable to be with us. That is Susan and Charles Chu and Larry Best of OXO Stable. Neither could be here with us today, but we thank them for all of their contributions to the sport as well. So we have a very impressive group, as you can tell, and relatively new owners that are here today, and they're here to take your questions, talk about some of the ways that they got started in the sport, and hopefully help you determine how you might be able to follow their success if you decide to get involved in thoroughbred ownership. So Jamie, we're going to start with you first with the first question. And what I'm going to do is I'll ask each panelist, or I'll throw one out to the group and let everybody kind of chime in on a question. And then at the end, we'll open it up for your questions and answers, as Gary mentioned in the opening billboard, and you'll have a chance to weigh in and ask questions of all of our panelists as well. So Jamie, ladies first, we're going to start with you. And this question actually goes out to the entire group, but I want to give you a first crack at it. Each of you come from different backgrounds. So talk a little bit about how you got started, why you got started in thoroughbred ownership, and really where the love of racing began for you.
Well, I think I had an untraditional way into the sport. I had no connection. I never went to the track, never visited Lexington. Pretty much I was a huge sports fan growing up, and I would follow the Triple Crown races. I knew enough to know who the favorite would be, who the long shot was, but that was about it. Funny enough, in 2009, I came across a show called Jockeys on Animal Planet, and I binge watched it in one day. Felt it was so fascinating to me. So after that, I delved into racing a little bit more, and it coincided with Rachel Alexandra and her three-year-old campaign when she was running in the Oaks. And I felt this deep connection to her because growing up, I played on many travel sports, many boys travel teams. And I can't say it was, I can't say many people were a fan of that. So I felt a deep connection and a lot of respect for her and Stone Street for campaigning her against the boys and taking on the boys. And after she won the Preakness, I was all in. Had no idea how to get into the sport because I grew up not knowing anyone. Right place, right time. My best friend moved to Del Mar. So I was at the track one day and met Alex Solis Jr., who Hall of Fame, son of Hall of Fame jockey. We spent the day at the track. He asked me what I wanted to do, how I wanted to get involved in racing. He said, please tell me you don't want to win the Derby. And I said, no, I want to get involved with fillies because of Rachel. And 2 days later, he came up with a business plan, brought the business plan to me. I brought it to my parents. I'm lucky to have very supportive parents who really backed a passion of mine. And as we know, we run LNJ together. And a month later, we went to Keeneland, September sale, and bought 4 well-bred yearlings. And 9 years later, we own more horses than I ever expected. But it's been the most amazing experience, met some amazing people that I can call close friends. And being around the horses I wish everyone could be around a horse a little bit because they change your lives. That's my way into the sport.
And what a great story. Saul, how about for you? How and why did you get started with ownership?
Wow, I'm not gonna be able to top that story. I grew up, in Boston. Again, probably similar to Jamie, no real background in horse racing at all. I had been to the the infield of the Preakness twice in college, and I can't remember actually seeing a horse run from the view I had in the middle of the infield. So that was about it for me. About, I don't know, maybe it was 8 or 9 years ago, a good friend of mine just approached me, a guy named Jay Hanley, who I'm still close friends with and own some horses with. And he had grown up spending his summers in Saratoga, and had said to me that, you know, he just thought I'd like it. He said there's a family element, and go to the races with your buddies, and there's a kind of a deal element, and there were just lots of things about it he thought I'd like. So he had met Chad Brown, who at the time I think was maybe the 5th or 6th owner in the standings in terms of earnings. So kind of on his way up, but maybe had not climbed all the way to the top of the mountain yet. He just said, let's meet him. I think you'll like him. He's a really smart guy. He's our age. So we went to dinner with him, and I liked him. I was impressed, smart, thoughtful, had a plan for us. And so we, put a little money together with 4 buddies and ended up buying 4 horses from a 2-year-old sale, literally knowing nothing. And again, my input was just writing the check. I was pretty skeptical at the time. And we got extremely lucky. Ended up 3 of the 4 horses went to the Breeders' Cup the first year. And one of them was named after my wife, Lady Eli, who turned out to be just a tremendous filly. And the journey of Lady Eli for me, I've owned a lot of horses over those last 8 or 9 years, really was the one that got me hooked. And if it hadn't been for her, I'm not sure I would have been so involved in racing today. She won her first 6 races, won the Breeders' Cup, and on the way back from her drug test, in her 6th race, she stepped on a nail that wasn't supposed to be there. Turned out to get very sick. She got something called laminitis that everyone on the phone and on this panel knows what it is, and most people watching probably don't want to. It's, your horse gets extremely sick, and at that point, if they make it back to the races, it's a very low probability. If they race at a high level, it's almost impossible. And at that point, we went from kind of feeling like we were at the top of the world to going out to Belmont and just hanging with her while her feet were in ice buckets. After work every day. And so I felt the highs, and then I felt the lows. And then, a year later, she came back and won another few grade 1s and was champion at 5. And that experience of just, of everything with Lady Eli was what really got me involved and got me hooked. And we've obviously built up a bigger stable since.
Yeah. Wow. Pretty remarkable. Patrick, what's your story?
A little bit different. So unlike Jamie and Saul, I a little bit unique here in that I pretty much was born in the barn, is the kind of the family saying. My late grandfather, who I was named after, was actually a horrible gambler. Like, he just wasn't very good at it. He loved to gamble, but he just was not good at it. So he ended up actually losing my family on the O'Neill side a couple houses growing up. And so he had 4 boys. By the way, I promise this story gets a lot better. But he had 4 boys, obviously one being my father, and the 2 youngest just fell in love with the sport. They didn't know what was going on. They didn't know that their room size was getting smaller, that their beds were getting smaller. All they knew is the track was fun. It was a great community. And these majestic animals made them feel differently about how they, spent their day-to-day lives. So Doug and Dennis are my uncles. And Doug, if you don't know on the phone, is a thoroughbred horse trainer on the West Coast. And Dennis is a bloodstock agent on the West Coast as well. So ever since I can remember kind of having my eyes open, I remember being around the track. And my life has kind of coincided with the rise of both of them in the industry. And so I remember vividly running $4,000 claimers at Los Al or Bay Meadows, and then to have it all kind of culminate with Doug winning the Kentucky Derby in 2012 with I'll Have Another, and then winning the Kentucky Derby again with Nyquist in 2016 with the great owner, J. Paul Redham. It's definitely been something I've been a part of my entire life. And to be on this panel with this group as an owner is something I never fathomed. We definitely feel extremely honored and blessed. Don't necessarily feel like I deserve it because I wanted to be in the industry, Mike, but I didn't think it would be this early. And so I was very lucky to go to college and play football out on the East Coast with some of the best friends I'll have my entire life. And, as we all know on this phone and on this call, after college, life changes very quickly. It's definitely a different type of ride. We all got very serious about our careers. We all started finding significant others, and we just weren't spending as much time together, the 5 of us guys on the football team. And so we spent a Labor Day weekend. It's funny, that's this past weekend at Del Mar, randomly in 2016. And the guys, just like anybody that experiences this amazing sport, had the time of their lives. You know, these majestic animals, you know, great weather, you know, the competitive spirit, the deal making aspect that Saul mentioned, all resonated with the group. And one of the guys is a little bit more, let's call it risk friendly, was like, hey, let's make this a reason to spend more time together and let's buy a racehorse. And I can tell you that I looked at him dead in the eyes, knowing my family history, and I said, I probably used a different word, but I said, I'll just say for this call, you're an idiot. And so it took 2 years for us to kind of put this partnership together, but it had everything to do with, I didn't want to potentially lose friends over, you know, financials, but we put our heads together and said, there's got to be a smart way to do this. Let's diversify. Let's kind of have a hedge fund model. Let's make sure that we're partners with other great owners like this panel. And we ended up 2 years later buying a couple horses. And just like I said to the guys, the first one was god awful and she was not very fast. We know exactly where she is today. She's very well taken care of in Indiana, but she ran for $4,000 and got claimed. The second one broke even. And so at this point in time, COVID had just hit and we have a little bit of cash left as a group. And we're like, guys, that was fun. Do we really want to keep going or not? We have 5 guys in our group. 2 said yes, 2 said no. In our operating agreement, it's majority rule. Is I'm in the middle saying, oh gosh, I got to make this decision again. And I say yes. Dennis ends up finding Hot Rod Charlie at a sale, at a yearling sale. Hot Rod Charlie is already 75% sold to our great co-owners in Bill Strauss and Road Rider Racing. And so if I didn't talk to Dennis every day as my godfather, we would have never had this opportunity. Dennis said, do you guys want in? I think it's smart. He's by Oxbow, unfortunately, but every other part of him, he's great. And we took the leap of faith. And as many people on this phone call probably know, he's brought us on this incredible ride where we ran second in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, ran third in the Kentucky Derby, brought us to Dubai. And so Jamie's story about Rachel Alexander, her whole story about Lady Eli, it's just absolutely incredible how these horses kind of bring your family and friends together and bring people together. And it's definitely something that I didn't expect this early on in my horse racing career.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic, that common bond that we all share. And let's face it, each of you compete against each other, but we're all in it for the common good, right? And we're trying to make racing even better, but the common bond is always the horse. And I think that's what we heard from Jamie and from Saul and from Patrick. Michael Behrens, how about with you? Was it the horse? How'd you get started?
Yeah, well, I wasn't in horse racing. I became a fan relatively early. I grew up in Southern California, and I got into the races maybe just before 18, fell in love with it, but then went on a career in ad tech and marketing and e-commerce. And racing always just was how I kind of decompressed, had some, good time, as Patrick described, going to Del Mar, having a good time with friends. That was what racing was for me. But I spent 20 years in e-commerce. I actually wanted to be in the CMO of a company called Casper that shoved mattresses in a box and sold them online. And I lived in California. I worked in New York, so I'd fly every Sunday out there and had a lot of time to think and started to play with an idea of trying to figure out what I could do kind of entrepreneurial to give horse racing maybe a little bit of a marketing kick in the rear. Just always enjoyed it as a marketer, wanted to see if there's anything I could do to help out. And I came to the hypothesis that racing needed better trial. Lots of people were interested. Lots of people had some type of connectivity, but didn't quite know how to get involved. I actually started attending some owner conferences, met some people, and I met people like on this panel who those that owned just seemed to have the greatest joy and appreciation and passion for the game, and thought if we could democratize that, make everybody have the ability to have that excitement that whatever ownership was providing so many people, that would be a great way to catalyze the growth of the game. So hired a few securities attorneys and tried to figure out if there was a way to make it possible. And after 3 or 4 failures on that, was able to figure it out. Did a little small beta test in California to democratize ownership through an app called My Racehorse, and then had the unbelievable fortune of partnering with Mr. B. Wayne Hughes. And he believed in the vision. He saw it. And he said, "Stop messing around with these, kind of modest horses. Let's go big. Let's go get you some real good horses." Went out there and acquired Authentic. Took a minority interest in that horse with Mr. Hughes, and obviously we know the story there. He went on to win the Derby. 5,324 people went nuts, and kind of gave us a little legitimacy to our business. And now 100 horses later in UK, Ireland, Australia, and the US, here it is.
I see the 3 bridles behind you. Is one of those authentic?
Of course it is. We don't have a room in any office that we have that doesn't have a winner's circle picture, a bridle, or some people a memorabilia of authentic.
Yeah, great story. Gary Palmisano, how about for you?
Definitely the traditional sort of way in the game for me. Father was a racehorse trainer in Louisiana, grew up going to fairgrounds day in and day out as a kid. Knew all along that I wanted to be in the racing industry in some form or fashion. My father was what I thought shrewd at the time, but smart now. He never really let me get hands-on with the horses. He was like, if you want to work in the industry, that's great, but you need to follow around guys like Saul and ladies like Jamie, the people that are sharp business people and that make decisions. So you go over to the front side and you hang out with them for a while. And the backside life will always be there if you want it, but I want a different experience for you or a different path for you. Backside life is tough. It's 7 days a week. He was like, I'd prefer you be on the front side, but I'm here to support it anyway. So he shipped me to college at the University of Louisville, where I did the equine business program. And then I started working at Churchill Downs as an intern while I was in school. And I'm coming up on my 15th year with Churchill now. I'm a director of race day operations here. And part of my role or responsibility is running the Churchill Downs Racing Club, which we founded in 2016 as a way to get new owners into the sport. We had seen this concept done at a couple other racetracks and felt like if we put our brand behind it and our firepower behind it, that we could make it something special. So in 2016, we launched the club, which allowed it's 200 members in each group. So we had 2 groups right off the bat. So 400 people got involved in the game. We tabbed Wayne Lucas to be the first trainer of the racing club horses. And he sort of took this thing to another level with just his name and recognition, but also his grace to the members and willingness to spend time with folks. And I think that really catapulted kind of the racing club. And like all of us, the first horse off the bat was successful. And as soon as you get that little taste of success, it just spurs on the want and the drive to have more success. So we started out with a horse named Warriors Club that rattled off about $800,000 in earnings and was a graded stakes winner. And he sort of set the table for the racing club. And to date, we've run 9 or 10 different horses, each group having 200 members. And when we started this thing in 2016, the My Race horses of the world sort of weren't there. So this was a little bit of the first kind of fractional owner group that kind of made its way into the industry. And, we're happy to see so many others that have come behind and doing things bigger and better than we could possibly do them. And that's only strengthening the industry. So very, very happy for that.
Yeah, we're going to hear more and reflect more on some of those horses that each of you mentioned, some of those top horses you had the privilege to be around. We'll do that in just a little bit, but I want to throw another question out to each of you. And Saul, I'm going to start with you first. So often in ownership, an owner will hire a trainer, they'll pay the bills, they'll occasionally talk to the trainer about their horses. I'm curious though, with each of you, and again, Saul, starting with you, how involved are you in working with the trainer and talking to them about your horses?
Well, we've got a team that work closely with our stable, a gentleman named John Panicott and a woman named Amanda Motz. And they do a terrific job, and they have different responsibilities, and they're talking to the trainers pretty frequently. I think the way we approach it is just, you got to know what you know and know what you don't know. And showing up at a sale, I've done it once. I did not help the process. I have no discipline and I have no edge. So as much as it was fun, I just made a decision that, except for a couple of nights in Saratoga, I don't go to the sales. I get a certain amount of days allotted for this hobby, and I just don't use them on those days. I use them to go to the races with friends and family. So I'd say at times we get pretty involved. I think as we come up with a plan for the year, I sit down with John and Amanda, and we come up with what we want to spend and who's going to buy what. And we use a lot of data to try to figure out who we think is good at what and who we think is good at training what. And we have some views there that maybe aren't what everyone else in the industry is doing. They're not necessarily the right way to do it. I think the great thing about this sport is there is no right or wrong way. Everyone's got a different style and a different process and a different way of doing it. And there's so many people that are successful. You got to kind of figure out what works for you and follow it and try to make sure you're having fun. And that's our approach. So, when we're in Saratoga in the summer, that's the only time I'm able to really spend, time around the horses, just because got a bunch of kids and a job. And, I spend some time with my trainers there and I'll talk to them about really the good horses and try to figure out where they're planning to go and trying to make sure that, maybe a few of our horses won't be running in the same races with different trainers. That tends to be takes a little bit of work and massaging, but we really let them do their thing. We try to partner with trainers that know how to manage a horse, that treat the horses the right way. And then it makes our job easier. So we don't have to do quite as much.
Patrick, I'll come to you next. You've got a little different situation. There's that saying that you never want to work with family, right? Well, you referenced it earlier, your uncle, Doug O'Neill, the trainer. Tell me about how you handle that and talking with the trainer about your horses.
Yeah, I think something that's always benefited you, Mike, is just realizing I'm never going to be the smartest person in the room. So this is a perfect example of that. And so for myself, I realize that I'm very, very fortunate to have my two uncles who are resident experts in the industry. So definitely lean on them a ton. I will kind of go back to my, my friendship story that, one of the big reasons that we got into this sport was to have an excuse to be able to text each other every day and be very, very excited about some future horse racing event. And so one of the underrated aspects I think about horse racing is certainly putting together that plan that Saul was kind of mentioning for each and one of your horses, and selecting a race and working backwards. Now, does it ever work the way that you think it's going to work? Usually no, but it's fun the 1 in a million times that it does, because there are so many different variables in this sport. And so I'd say just from time to time, we like to get together as a group and say, hey, this horse should go here, this horse should go there. And that's kind of how we play it as an ownership group on boat racing side. But again, we lean on the experts a ton. I definitely lean on my uncle. I definitely lean on Dennis as well, because he has a different perspective as a bloodstock agent versus a trainer. So I'm very, very lucky to have those guys in my network.
Gary, what about for you? Overseeing an operation like Churchill Downs Racing Club, you're overseeing a club. So how much interaction do you have to have with the trainer?
Yeah, quite a bit. Probably more than the trainer wants me to have, but that's only because that's my excuse to get out of the office and get to the backside. So if I gotta go check on that horse in the morning, I gotta miss that 9 a.m. meeting, then it's my excuse. But I do like to be involved, and our members do like to be involved. We have a Facebook page, so posting videos, posting workout clips, posting all those different things, and just trying to educate. Our big mission for the club was education. So if I can have a conversation with a trainer as to why he's picking a certain race or why he's going a certain direction, and I can reiterate that message to the group, that's helping 200 people learn more about the sport. And that's a good thing for all of us. So for me, I try to be hands-on. Obviously the trainers make all the decisions when it comes to buying horses or where to go, but I just want to be in the conversation and then try to relay that message to the group so they in turn can learn something or understand why we did certain things certain ways. So that's a little bit of our approach.
Michael, do you have to interact maybe more than some owners because of how you're handling your My Racehorse business?
Well, individually, I don't. I wish I could. I spend most of my time with regulators, lawyers, compliance officers, marketers, once in a while, engineers. I wish I could get to the backside once in a while, but I don't really know what I'm doing back there anyway. So it's probably best if I stay away. But we have a big team, because we have so many partners, and they want to be well informed what's going on. We have a team at the track. We have a resident vet. We have a global bloodstock agent. So they're staying very, very close. And one thing I say, I kind of concur with everybody's sentiment that you hire great people to do their job, and then it becomes that point though where big decisions have to be made, which is why it's so important to stay really informed. If you're going to potentially leave a trainer, move to a different trainer, you're going to leave a circuit, maybe go to a different circuit, you have to make a major decision about ending a horse's racing career for either aftercare or to sell the horse, retire as a broodmare. there becomes those decisions, which is so important to be well informed. So we try to stay as informed as possible. We also try to be very deferential to the trainers when they're doing their job, but that doesn't kind of stop the fact that we need to be gathering information for those moments that those key decisions need to be made.
Jamie, how involved are you on a day-to-day basis?
So quite frankly, we delegate to our bloodstock agents. We don't speak to our trainers very much. We're a global stable. We race in Australia and France and Canada. So we have to keep things pretty streamlined and work efficiently. I trust our Hall of Fame trainers to make the right decisions. We weren't so keen, for example, in putting Olympiad in the Jockey Club Gold Cup just after the Whitney, just a little questions, but we let Bill make the call. He wanted to run, and well, that's what Hall of Fame trainers, those are Hall of Fame trainer decisions. In terms of my family, we all have different roles. My mom, she just wants to be with the horses. It's what she loves. She loves to give them kisses and love on them. My dad is definitely more loves the racing. Although he doesn't watch the races, his head is down the whole time because he's so nervous. And then at the end, he like picks his head up, win or lose. Myself, I love the breeding aspect. I'm very involved in social media. I think it's fun to get the fans involved, whether it's a contest to win a hat or just post fun pictures. But really, we don't get to spend as much time with the horses as we like because most of our horses were in California. It's hard to go across the country just to see them. But now that most of our horses are going to be here back east, we'll see more of them. But really, it's all about delegating, letting the smart people make the right decisions. So kind of how we operate.
Yeah, it's a formula that's worked really well for you. You've campaigned so many top graded stakes winners, including the likes of Filly and Mare Sprint winner Kofefi. You had Constellation, you had Nickname, and then you just mentioned Olympiad, now a grade 1 winner, which is really cool. But first of all, we're going to take a look back at some of the horses that you each have mentioned in these opening couple of segments. Let's start, Jamie, with Kofefi, and let's take a look at that stretch run of her winning the Filly and Mare Sprint.
And they're into the stretch, and Kofefi has made a run. She has taken over here, and from off the pace, now she's 2.5 lengths in front. Bella Fina on the outside tries to run her down. Spice Perfection is third, 16th to go. Kofefi, Bella Fina on the far outside. These two coming down to the line, and Kofefi does it. Kofefi over Bellafina. Dawn the Destroyer was closing late on the outside of Spice Perfection. Kofefi from a little off the pace today, but she got the job done.
Boy, did she ever. Larry Colmus with the call on NBC there, as you just saw. Jamie, as you're watching that, are you thinking back to that day and what that moment was like?
Well, I have to say, if I'm having a bad day, I put that on quite often. Reminds me how lucky I am to be in the sport. I just had such a sense of relief. There was so much pressure on this filly because of her name. I mean, she brought so many people together, whether they liked horses or not, just because the name trended all the time. But really, after the Miss Preakness, when she broke the track record, incredible race, and the test beating the Oaks winner, it just felt so much pressure. She didn't feel the pressure, but as an owner, you feel it. And there was so much relief when she was able to win from the one post against older fillies. It just was so impressive. I was in awe of her. I just wanted to be as present in the moment as possible, but it was so overwhelming. But just the sense of pride I had as an owner, proud of Brad Cox and everyone behind getting her to the races. I know how hard, more than anything, I recognize how hard this sport is. And to be in a Breeders' Cup is, blew my mind. But to win the Breeders' Cup in 9 years in the business, just really was speechless. There's not much more to say than I was so grateful and just want to hold on to those memories, because you never know when you'll be back at that moment. It's a really, really tough game.
Well, and you've been able to continue that success now all these years in the business. We just mentioned Olympiad just winning the grade 1 for you. So now your horses have earned more than $11 million, which is ultra impressive. What's been the key to being able to reach those heights and be able to stay there too?
Without question, having a great team that you can trust and are loyal. That doesn't happen all the time. And I always say my biggest win was meeting Alex Solis. He grew up around the sport and didn't learn racing through books. He learned it at the track and with his dad, and that's not anything you can learn in books. So I felt so lucky to have him because his knowledge is tremendous. And so having a great team, also having quality race mares, that's super important. Pedigree, you hope it comes through, and it often does, and classy horses will make you look good. And another thing I think what we've been really good at is seeing things in a different way, approaching untapped markets that otherwise maybe we wouldn't have. And let's say 2016 is a good example. We saw that there was maybe a market to buy colts in a certain price range. We normally don't race colts, but in that particular year, we thought, oh, okay, this might be an advantageous year to do that. And we found United, multiple graded stakes winner, second in the Breeders' Cup Turf. I mean, same year as Covfefe. I couldn't imagine if he had crossed that wire first. So I think it's looking out of the box. And even with Lighthouse, a mare that we raced in the US, stakes placed here, but we felt there were more grass options for sprinters in Australia. So we took a chance and we sent her there, and it ended up being a great idea. She won the Grade 1 Coolmore Classic, increased her value tremendously as a broodmare, sold her at Magic Millions for 1.7 million, which was wild. And so I think it's a great team, having quality mares, quality racehorses, and looking for new opportunities.
Yeah, it's been a great ride for Jamie and L&J Foxwoods, no doubt. Saul, let's come to you next because you have also had so much success. You referenced the Breeders' Cup and you mentioned Lady Eli earlier. You were also involved in partnership with a little horse by the name of Justify, and all he did was sweep the Triple Crown. So let's start by taking a look back at that special day at Belmont Park.
And they're into the stretch, and Justify comes roaring home to a raucous Belmont Park with 1 furlong to run. Gronkowski and Hofberg trying to run him down. Vino Rosso is fourth, a 16th to go. Justify is still there. Justify from Gronkowski. He's just perfect, and now he's just immortal. Justify is the 13th Triple Crown winner. Gronkowski was second, Hofberg was third, and Vino Rosso was fourth. Justify has done it!
Saul, I don't know about you. I have chills watching that and listening to Larry Colmus bring them home again. How about for you? What's going through your mind right now?
It was a special day. I mean, and Jamie touched on the word pressure. When you get a horse like that, you really, there's almost a sense of relief when those horses cross the wire, because you have so many people there. You think about it when you wake up, you think about it when you go to bed. I mean, you want it for not only yourself and your partners, but for everyone else that is with you, everyone that's involved in the horse, the trainer, the exercise rider, the groom, everybody. And that was a special day. I mean, we had like 160 people that came to the races just with our group that day, friends, family from all over the place. And it was an amazing win. I mean, obviously something that doesn't happen very often. We've been lucky enough to win a lot of big races, but that's a sequence of 3 in a row that probably won't happen again, well, at least for me in my lifetime. So you find a ways you do this a little bit longer, to have kind of bucket list races that you want to check off your list. And every year we're able to knock a couple off, if things go well. That's one that we got lucky to knock off early, because I don't think we'll be able to do that again.
Jamie said if she ever needs a little pick-me-up, she'll go back and pop in that tape of Kofefi winning the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint. How about for you? Do you have a race you like to go back and watch if you need to get back to a high level?
I don't have a particular one. No. I honestly I've got one room in my house that my wife absolutely hates, where all the good trophies are. And she never really goes in the room. It's sort of my special little place. So whenever I'm feeling down or we've just had a rough weekend at the races, I'll sit down in that room and read the newspaper and just look around and see some of the trophies that make me happy and remember those days. So it tends to be the trophies that make me happier than the video, but either one works.
I'll ask you the same question I asked Jamie. What do you think has been the key to you being able to reach these levels and now stay at this level?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Jamie's first point, which is team. I mean, you have to put good people around you that you trust, that are good at what they do, and then let them do their job. I think one of the mistakes lots of owners make is getting too involved, and it makes it difficult for the trainers and the bloodstock agents to do what they're good at. And so that's probably the first part. I think the second part is just trying to do things a little bit differently. Trying to always be flexible, trying to evolve, your process in terms of what you're looking for. If everyone's looking in one direction, we're always trying to find ways to look in a different direction. That might be buying, colts when people are buying fillies, buying a different price range, using a different person to buy the horses, going in a different geography and bringing the horse to the US, but going to a different sale. There's no perfect way to do it. And then the other part is we really do use a lot of data in what we do. I think, for an industry where there's a lot of extremely bright people that have been successful in all different walks of life, many of them are cavalier in the way that they approach their hobby. And so we're cavalier at the races, we have a good time, but we try to be, we try to use the things that we use in our day jobs. And there's a lot of data available. And so there's lots of ways to use it, whether it's assessing what trainers are good at training what types of horses and what bloodstock agents are good at buying what types of horses and what sales better horses at different price ranges come from, what consigners are good to buy off of and not good to buy off of. There's a lot of stuff there that if you spend some time with it, I just think you can increase your chances of success just maybe a little bit in a game that's really, really difficult.
Yeah, great advice. Excellent advice for new owners potentially looking to get into this game. Patrick, we're going to turn to you next. And you and your team at Boat Racing have had success, including graded stakes winner Hot Rod Charlie. So let's take a second and spin back the clock and take a look at Chuck, as you like to call him, winning the Grade 1 Pennsylvania Derby.
Drifting a touch was Hot Rod Charlie. Midnight Bourbon comes right after this rival. American Revolution making up late ground from third. An eighth to go. Hot Rod Charlie, Midnight Bourbon, American Revolution, a 16th to go. Hot Rod Charlie is opening up. Hot Rod Charlie will win the Pennsylvania Derby and create a Grade 1.
Yeah, how about that moment? That was pretty cool.
God, that guy makes me laugh. You saw him flopping leads all the way down the stretch, and then obviously could barely turn going for home. But I think what's funny and resonated with all these different videos we're watching is I personally know exactly where I was watching the Kofefe race or the Justify race that you just showed, and certainly the Hot Rod Charlie race. I was actually at one of the guys' weddings. So we were in the groomsmen's headquarters, all watching the race together. And I'll tell you that 3 people within the groomsmen party who were not part of the Hot Rod Charlie team are now current owners. So in the spirit of this discussion, it was great to have Hot Rod Charlie bring obviously a ton of new fans and people into the sport. But specifically to that race, Mike, honestly, there's nothing like it. I mean, that horse has brought us so much joy. He's brought all of our friends and family together and combined it with this sport that we love. I mean, did I ever expect to go to Dubai? Did I ever expect to run second in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile at 94-1, or even be in the Kentucky Derby and have 200 people there that literally I knew from the time I was, 3 years old? And so at that point in time, Charlie had a little bit of controversy where he took a little bit of a wide turn in the Haskell. Thank God Paco Lopez was okay. So at that point in time, I think what was great and the feeling that we had was just kind of justification for him. He deserved to win a grade 1. I was happy for him. People started to think of him as an upper echelon horse. And so in the spirit of him kind of being our 6th brother of the boat racing crew, we couldn't have been more happy for him. And you could see my face. I was laughing because just watching him down the stretch, it's just like he is down in the barn or back at the barn. He's just a really, really goofy guy. And so we've certainly fallen in love with him, and there'll never be another horse for us like Hot Rod Charlie.
How many horses does boat racing own now? And do you think there maybe one day, and I know it's a dream, could be another Hot Rod Charlie?
It's funny, Saul said this, where it's like one of the recipes for disaster are getting too involved, right? And so we definitely started splurging a little bit after Hot Rod Charlie, and we've taken a little bit of the foot off the gas a tad, but it's always the hope, right? Once a horse like that might get you to the mountaintop, the goal is to potentially get there again. So we have a couple of babies in the pipeline. We have a really decent 3-year-old who kind of runs forever along on the grass named Win the Day. So we have goals and aspirations of making it back to the Pennsylvania Derby and running at the top of the sport. But honestly, Mike, it's probably a recipe for disaster to think that, we're going to have another Hot Rod Charlie anytime soon.
Yeah.
But I can tell you, my friends who have not been in the sport as long as I have certainly have skewed expectations. So they definitely would love to have another Hot Rod Charlie. They talked a lot about, mini baby Hot Rod Charlies, hopefully in the future, that can run just as fast as he can potentially. But one thing, Mike, that we have focused a little bit on is kind of diversification. And so one of the things as owners is you can kind of get deep with going after one strategy. And so at the time we were just investing in 2-year-olds with Dennis, but we've gone into the pinhook game a little bit, which for the benefit of the people on this call is when you buy a horse at a younger age and sell them at usually a year or 2 older, and hopefully obviously make a difference off of what you purchased the horse at initially. We have planned on buying a couple mares to hopefully support Charlie when he moves on to this second stage of his career in the next couple of years. And certainly looked at, Charlie as a potential stallion prospect in the future as well. So our focus right now is probably stick with the game plan of not getting too involved on the racing side, but at the same time supporting and staying in the industry, and then probably putting a little bit more emphasis on the other areas of the industry that we currently are not invested in.
Yeah, always looking toward the future, and that's the great thing about this game. It's a game built on hopes and dreams, and we all have those dreams, and hopefully it turns out very well for you, Patrick. So keep it rolling. Gary, let's turn to you next as the man who oversees the Churchill Downs Racing Club. Your best horse to date has been Warriors Club, and he's been really, really good. A winner of the Grade 3 Commonwealth Stakes at Keeneland. Let's take a look back at that race.
Westwood is the leader off the far turn by a length and a half to Conquest Windy City in second. Now Warriors Club third between horses. Behavioral Bias fourth down toward the inside. Awesome Saturday down the center of the racetrack. Limousine Liberal tries to come late. Behavioral Bias needs room. Awesome Saturday far outside to challenge Warriors Club and Westwood. Limousine Liberal, then Behavioral Bias. Awesome Saturday coming after Warriors Club. Limousine Liberal is right there. Warriors Club wins it by a neck for Luis Contreras in the Commonwealth. 122-3.
Keeneland announcer Kurt Becker and our colleague here on the network as well with the call of that race. Boy, what a gutsy effort that was, huh?
Yeah, he was aptly named Warriors Club. He had a ton of heart, and he was a horse that sort of gave his best effort every chance he could get. That race was a typical Wayne Lucas race. I had my condition book out. I had some allowance race picked out. I was like, Wayne, look, these people just want win pictures. It doesn't matter if it's at Belterra or Oaklawn or wherever. Like, they want to go to work on Monday morning, sit around the water cooler and tell people their horse won. And I'm like, let's just find the easiest road. Let's put some pictures on the wall. He was like, no, sir, we're going to the graded stake at Keeneland. We're going to be 25-1, but I'm telling you, this horse is ready. You tell those people show up. And we had about 150 that showed up. And my initial reaction was, what do we do now? Where do we go? How does this work? But my biggest joy as a person who grew up in the industry and obviously have experienced that before, we're seeing so many people that had never had that experience before get that thrill. And, Wayne he made it so special. Wayne's won every big race there is to win, but people coming up and hugging and crying and Wayne being right there with him. I think that race was an opportunity for him to give a little back to the game and to kind of the next generation, and really seeing his enjoyment and seeing everyone else's enjoyment of that moment was what made it so special for me. And, very cool horse. He was a $50,000 yearling that went off to rattle off $800,000 in earnings. And that's kind of how we play the game, is to try to buy 1 or 2 horses a year and try to just have people have an experience and win a race or two and try to get some enjoyment. But for that horse to win that race on that day, it was incredibly special.
I love your Wayne Lucas story too. And tell me if I'm wrong. It doesn't matter what the odds are on any Wayne Lucas horse in any big race, spend about 5 minutes with him before the race and he'll convince you that he's the horse to beat.
Yeah, along those same lines, I gotta say I owe Wayne a lot. Similar story. Churchill's running in the spring. I'm like, all right, Wayne, we're gonna try to win this little listed stake here. I want everybody to come out, but he convinced me that we were a player in the Met Mile, and that was on the day Justify won the Triple Crown. So I was happy to have been convinced by Wayne that the Met Mile was the place for us to be that day. Unfortunately, he ran 5th. He gave a good effort, but that's Wayne's ever the optimist. And yeah, you're exactly right. There's never a doubt where he doesn't think his horse has a chance to win. And his sense of confidence, kind of went through our membership. And that's a big reason why Wayne was so successful for us.
Well, congratulations on all that success, Gary, and continued success into the future as well. Michael Behrens, there are going to be an awful lot of people that remember My Racehorse and Authentic winning the Kentucky Derby, but just in case, let's go ahead and refresh their memory for you here today.
And they're into the stretch, and it's Tis the Law on the outside of Authentic. These two stride for stride as they come to the final furlong. Authentic is dragging in. Tis the Law all out to get by him. Authentic and John Velasquez have the lead as they come down to the 16th pole. Tis the Law still trying to get him. Authentic, Tis the Law, here's the wire. Authentic has won the Kentucky Derby.
Wow. What a performance, huh?
That it was incredible. It was every time I watch it.
How many My Racehorse members were allowed to be at Churchill for that race?
I mean, there was barely any. I mean, there was a couple of people who got in with other groups. It was so hard to get in back then. I mean, it was really, really difficult. I mean, that was obviously right in the middle, smack dab of the COVID's kind of restrictions at its height.
Yep.
And a lot of people will ask, like, did that kind of dampen it or whatever it may be? I actually think it was the opposite, right? It was such a difficult time for so many people. So to have like the first like truly democratized horse and have over 5,000 people at home, they all had parties, they had their friends over, their celebrations were ridiculous. It was I think it was really special that we were able to do it in such a difficult time, just to give a little bit of joy. I mean, it's the word everybody used. Is we have so much joy with these horses, to have so many people get to share that with family and friends on that day, on that stage, was pretty awesome.
Yeah, Authentic is probably the flag bearer for My Racehorse, I think, just because of the fact that he is a Kentucky Derby winner. But you've had so many other unbelievable graded stakes horses too. Talk a little bit about, because I think it's one of the questions I get most often when I'm talking to people that don't understand the sport, or maybe they have a little bit of an idea of what the sport's all about. They say, how does that My Racehorse work? So how do you go about acquiring the pieces of these horses that you're putting out there on the racetrack?
Yeah, like I wish I could say that, I walked the grounds and I picked Authentic as a baby, but that's not how it worked. We picked that horse up after he was quite the accomplished stud on the racetrack. So we have 2 different ways that we acquire horses. One is that people really want to be able to be there on the big Saturdays with the big horses. So our team is always looking for a horse that's already well accomplished, that has the opportunity to take it to even a greater heights. So we'll buy horses of racing age, we'll buy a percentage. We don't often buy the majority horse then, we'll buy a percentage of it, and then we'll syndicate out that piece, 10, 20, 30%. A great way to get in the races right away, to get with, quality stakes horses, have a good time. And then also we'll go and we'll buy the yearlings, we'll buy the 2-year-olds in training. So we buy both. So we buy both of those. You'll see them all the time. We list it on the website, tells you kind of when we purchase it, how much we purchase it for. but people get to build a stable whatever way they like. Because you heard on this call, all of us are different in terms of liking fillies or liking horses on the turf, or route horses or sprinters. And so all we're trying to provide is a nice diversified portfolio of all types of horses with different types of trainers, with different types of aspirations where they're going to run. And then we just have tens of thousands of people that will build their little stables in a way that's kind of best suits their desires.
I'm going to send out a reminder too to everybody who is watching live right now that you can submit your questions with the Q&A button at the very bottom of the screen, and we'll get to the question and answer portion of the conference here in just a little bit. But I want to throw another question out to the group, because according to Equibase and the statistics, each of you own horses in a variety of different partnerships. So Jamie, I'll come to you first here. Talk about that and talk about some of the benefits and maybe even some of the negatives of being involved with other partners.
It's a great question, because everyone does it so differently. We actually race primarily just 100% L&J, but we have had success with in partnerships, Olympiad, Country House, and it's fun. It's fun to celebrate with friends and family, champagne, the big dinner after that you may have not had until you win the race. But partnerships are great because it really helps with the financial risk. It makes the bad news you get from your bloodstock agent or from the trainer, hey, yeah, we're gonna have to send the horse out for 6 months or maybe even retire. So being able to share that financial risk is very helpful. And just if you want more action on the racetrack, partnerships are a great way to make that happen. So it's some of the pros. Some of the cons would be you don't own the whole horse, right?
Yeah.
It's pretty much the opposite. And if you have multiple owners who aren't on the same page or don't have the same philosophies, it can get tricky with what trainer you want to use, what races you want to run in. But personally, for the partnerships we have, everyone, it was kind of always on the same page, and luckily that's not an issue we have. But something unique to us as breeders is when you own a horse with other partners, but we want to retain the horse to breed, it can get a little tricky going through auction versus if we own the horse 100%, we would have no problem. We'd retire to be a brood mare. So that can be tricky for us. But overall, whether it's 100% L&J or in partnership, it's fun and it's exciting. And, winning races with friends and family, it's what it's all about. So that's awesome.
Patrick, I could see you nodding your head in agreement as Jamie was talking there, going through some of those points. And sorry, Jamie, I didn't mean to cut you off. Patrick, you agree with some of those?
Yeah, without a doubt. I think simply I'll start with the negatives so we can finish with the positives. But I think it's as simple as you are giving away decision-making power, right? When you were potentially in a partnership, and so that could be the downside. But I would say the upside is absolutely incredible. I mean, you get to meet new people, you get to have amazing new experiences. You get to have, I think, as Jamie put it, those dinners that you wouldn't necessarily have had if it was just kind of your core group. And so there's nothing like meeting new people and having experiences that are pretty much unworldly, like when your course crosses the finish line first. I will say on the joking side, but it is a very true thing. And I know, Michael, this resonates with you. One of the downsides of having a partnership is there's only so many paddock passes and there's only so many backside passes and derby walk passes. And so as somebody who had a very big crew, just the 5 of us as boat racing, but at the same time, our crew extended to our entire, university football team at one point for the Kentucky Derby. It put a lot of pressure on our crew and our co-owners, and Bill Strauss and Roadrunner Racing, and they couldn't have been better. I'll give them all the credit in the world, but in situations like that, it is somewhat tough. So, one of the things I really thought about is, how do you democratize that experience for people who are attending the races? And so I know we'll get into it, Mike, about how we could potentially make this industry better and get more owners into the game. But it is just a side note that there is not an infinite number of admission passes and paddock passes and backside passes that I think we all wish we had.
Yeah. we're down to about the final 5 minutes here in our conversation, so we're not going to be able to get to all of the questions and get input from each of you on these different topics. But Jamie, Patrick, that was really well done. I think everybody has had that person in their career that has helped them get to where they are, or at least get them started. So Saul, let me come to you first. Was there a person that helped you most? I know Jamie said Alex Elise was a big influence and maybe the most important person for her. How about for you?
I think at the beginning it was Chad Brown.
Yeah.
Just the first person I met, and so he spent a lot of time really teaching me about the game, about the places where you got to be careful, the things to think about. And today he's a close friend. We used to have all of our horses with him. Now we have 15 or 20%. So we've I'd say diversified the different trainers that we use, and he's been great with that. But at the beginning, he's the one that spent the most time and taught us the most.
Michael, for you, would it be Wayne Hughes, or was there somebody else?
No, without a doubt. I mean, as this being the kind of convergence of trying to build a new business and then also kind of build a business within horse racing, to have somebody with his amazing business acumen, and then for someone who's built what he's built in terms of Spendthrift Farms globally, it was the perfect, mentor and kind of, guide into this foray.
Gary?
Oh, without a doubt, my dad.
Yeah.
As a horseman or trainer for 30 or 40 years, his experience and his knowledge and me growing up in that environment is clearly what put me on my path. And and to have someone that, like any of us, to have a person you trust to lean on if you have to make a tough decision. It's incredibly important to have a valued person that is going to tell you the truth, no matter how hard the truth is for you to handle. But B, make sure that that's the best advice that you could possibly come up with. So for me, it's absolutely was my dad.
Let me stay with you and Michael for this final question here before we get to the question and answer session. Because your operations are so unique, you're not an individual owner that's partnering with other people necessarily. You're running a racing club. Michael, you have My Racehorse and all the different investors. Talk about, Gary, I'll start with you. Talk about the demographics of the people that are involved with the racing club.
It was actually very surprising to us, and it was pretty much right down the middle, men and women, all ages, all household incomes or whatever. What we found is that people just want to be involved in horse racing and they don't know how, and they felt like the fact that Churchill Downs was sponsoring this thing, they felt safe in their investment of what was $500, and they were able to just find an avenue into racing, and it felt more accessible. So we didn't necessarily find any particular demographic that was one way or the other. It was people from all walks of life, doctors, lawyers, teachers, retired folks that just wanted another passion and were interested in the sport and wanted to learn more and didn't know how.
Michael?
Yeah, I mean, it's well said. I mean, I think for us, a lot of people thought it's kind of the socioeconomic play, the fact that we made racehorse ownership accessible by getting rid of the minimums. But the reality is actually, it just proved to be fundamentally trial. It made it really easy to get involved with good quality horses and get started. And I think a testament to that is within a year of launching, we had to launch a traditional partnership where it was more like, your traditional cost to be able to get in. Because we had so many people that want to be participatory at a more intimate level, get their owner's license, be part of a smaller group. So we launched a platform called Edge Racing, which took people from microshares into kind of traditional syndicate ownership. And many of those have now gone on and are buying horses, and often they're competing against us in races, which is kind of interesting. But it really has been, this is a wonderful sport. So many people want to get involved. It was just, where did I go? How do I get involved? I want to play at the high level. And I think we're kind of filling that void for just people not knowing how to get started at the high level.
I guess I lied. I think we have time for one final point. And Jamie, I want you to be the one to make it, because you have always been a big proponent of aftercare with horses. After they finish their racing career, they go on to a second career or they find a good home. So talk a little bit about your involvement there.
Well, first of all, when L&J was formed, the first thing I said to Solis management was, these horses have to be taken care of. They have to be put first always, because I'm an animal lover, and truthfully, a lot of people in my life had a hard time understanding horse racing and getting behind it because unfortunately the view is not always positive. So that was really important to put out first. The way I see it, without the horses, there is no industry. And you can be a grade 1 winner, you can be a maiden winner, you can never make it to the racetrack. They all deserve the same. They all deserve the same lives after their racing career is over. So we do our best to find them great homes, whether we use new vocations that help adopt out homes for the horses. But we also do something I think is pretty cool. Whenever we sell a yearling at a sale, we always attach a note to the horse's papers that say, hey, you can't find them a home, please contact us, we'll take care of it. That's how important it is to us. And something on a personal level I'm proud of is the Horses First Fund, which is putting horses first. And I don't know how much time we have, but basically in 2016, there were 43 abandoned horses in Mercer County. And I read about it and I was so upset and, quickly made a donation to help start a fund that has been incredible. It's helped horses that have been neglected, helped horses that were stuck in the fires and horses that are treated terribly in Puerto Rico. It's just something I'm really proud of. And everyone on this panel I know recognizes the importance of aftercare. I just hope that I just wish more owners really understood that, but it's just, they're amazing and they all deserve great lives off the racetrack.
Yeah, well, great job, and great job to each of our panelists for everything they do to find horses new careers, to find them good homes after their careers are concluded. It is so, so important. So that's going to wrap up the question. Well, we're going to get to the question and answer part. That's going to wrap up the actual panel discussion. Question and answers are coming up next. We will pass along your questions. Each of our panelists will have a chance to answer those. But before we get to that point, please enjoy this word from Blood Horse, our question and answer sponsor.
Blood Horse Plus, available through bloodhorse.com, provides exclusive, timely, and unmatched content to subscribers, including Fox Sports, Blood Horse branded weekly programs, a detailed stakes winners section, behind-the-scenes videos from Blood Horse staff, on-demand access to deeper horse statistics, and a $5 monthly credit to equineline.com. Upgrade to Blood Horse Plus today.
All right, Gary Falter will pass along the questions, and should be a lot of fun. Thanks to everybody who submitted those questions.
Okay, we'll get started. First, I'd like to say what a great discussion. I really enjoyed listening to all your stories, your suggestions, your comments. Great panel. I really appreciate your time and everything you put into this. So let's get to the first question. How much of your success do you attribute to your hard work, and how much do you attribute to pure luck? Who wants to start that one?
We got extremely lucky. I'll go there.
Okay.
It's a natural part of the game. We went out, we bought one horse. He made $800,000. You do the best you can. You can do as much research as you want, but there's certainly an amount. You try to narrow your window as much as you possibly can and make it as positive of an experience, or do whatever you can do to close the gap or give yourself an edge, but there's a lot of luck involved.
Anybody else?
You know what I would say is yes, without a doubt, Gary. There's no one more lucky than myself and the boat racing guys on this panel. I feel like third horse made it to the Kentucky Derby. But there's also something to putting yourself around and next to, good people. And I feel like our group did surround ourselves with good people who knew what they were doing in the industry. So it gave us every chance to have that type of success. Now, again, having your third horse be in the Kentucky Derby is ridiculous. I mean, you guys can do the math, 20,000 horses a year, 20 horses in the gate in the Kentucky Derby. But at the same time, I think between, loving on these animals, making sure that $4,000 claimer found an after home, that's all you can really handle and can control. And once you do those things, you just hope the stars align and you are doing all these things for the right reasons, and the gods benefit you with a Kentucky Derby horse at some time in the near future.
Okay. Here's a question. Go ahead. Go ahead, Jamie.
I'll add something because it's a little different perspective because we primarily are breeders. So luck in that part of the racing industry, you need so much luck. You have to get your broodmare pregnant. That might not happen. They might slip, and then unfortunately, it's the end of the breeding season, so you miss a season. You have to have a successful pregnancy. I mean, a lot can go wrong. And, you got to hope that from when they're born to when they get to the breakers, nothing terrible happens, nothing that could set them back to not be a racehorse. And then just getting through the breaking process and getting to the trainer and not getting hurt, during training, and getting into the starting gate. And then you get into the starting gate and you might get scratched. Just happened to me recently. So there's so much luck involved. That's just a different perspective of it from a breeding aspect. So you need a ton of luck.
Okay. Since most of you race in different states, how do you go about getting licensed and fingerprinted in every state? Michael, you got kind of a unique model. How does that work for you all?
Well, so we do have people that basically help us run all the licensing, which can be challenging because I still think that each state is actually figuring out what to do with us. So I feel like there's a little bit of inconsistencies. We don't have the standardization that you would expect. But with 30 something different states and everyone have different interpretation of the rules, it can be a little bit of a challenge. But most of the people are good people that want to work with you, and there is a consortium that you can work with that helps you to do that, which we kind of rely on a little bit as well. But I think overall most of the people are pretty easy to work with from that perspective.
Okay.
Yeah, I think what Michael was alluding to is the National Racing Compact, and anyone who has horses that race in different states, the Racing Compact is a one-time charge for 3 years, I think, and you submit one set of fingerprints to them, and they easily distribute it to any state that they work with from a licensing standpoint. It's a game changer for what we do if we're looking at different states, especially as I'm sure we've all been in the situation of trainer calls plan B and all of a sudden you're running in West Virginia in 3 days or whatever. And their ability, the Racing Compact streamlines a lot of those challenges. So I highly recommend it personally.
Okay. Here's a question from Mumbai, India. Question to Michael Behrens. Without any racing background, how were you able to come out with the concept of fractional ownership and regulators that you were able to convince?
A lot of expensive mistakes. So I hired a lot of really smart people to do some research. First few didn't really work out very well. But I mean, I guess the common theme of this call, right? We all got into areas it sounds like most of us didn't really kind of know where to get into, or we kind of expanded into unknown areas. We just surround ourselves with a lot of really good people. We found in this situation, it was a lot of legal and compliance and regulatory experts that helped us navigate not only the US, but then eventually Australia, Ireland, and the UK. And our number one thing is that we spend a lot of time doing diligence. We get a lot of kind of confidence that we understand kind of what the risks and the opportunities are. And then once we're ready to roll, we move forward decisively. So, same thing, surround yourself with good people. You can go into uncharted waters.
Okay. Well, here's a question. Let me scroll back down to it. What is the ROI in racing with only $870 million in purses in North America? Looks like there have to be a lot of owners that aren't making money. I guess there's a question in there somewhere. I mean, do you all focus on the return on investment?
Yeah, I guess I can touch on that. It's a tough business, and if your goal is just to make money, you could probably find some better things to do. The expected ROI of the stock market over the last 30 years is going to be better. But you still can do well, right? I find it to be a little bit like venture capital, where you need to find that really good horse every year, 2 years, whatever it is. Most people on this panel have been lucky enough to find that, they call it the once in a lifetime horse. And those pay for many of the ones that don't work out. And if you go through a long period without the big horse, it can be difficult financially. But the good ones, tend to pay for the ones that are a little bit slower. So I guess that's my answer.
Okay. Question for Michael and Gary. Do many of your members move on to other forms of ownership?
Yeah, like I said before, we had to start a traditional partnership at Edge Racing because we had so much demand to be able to move on, to get licensed, to have some more skin in the game. They've gone on, I'll see them in different partnerships, and they've gone on to their own. So absolutely, it's proving just to be kind of a foray to get involved. A lot of people still stay involved. It's not so much they go on and leave. They'll still kind of be participatory in what we do, because it's kind of unique to buy that kind of really high-end horse for such a nominal fee. But we definitely see people add and diversify outside of our fractional ownership.
100%. People drift off into all kinds of different ventures after the racing club. It's they're dipping their toe in the water, and some have dove head in and went after it. Some have joined Michael's group. Some have joined other groups. Some have gone on their own. They've been tremendous success stories that have come out of our group, and I know Michael's as well.
Okay. We have time for a couple more questions. So how can we get other young professionals involved as owners? What do we need to do as an industry, I guess?
I think that's the $1 million question.
Mm-hmm.
I think we all, working at a racetrack, working at Churchill Downs, we love seeing people like folks on this panel. All of us have found our way to the races in some form or fashion. And I think from my perspective, it's folks like us doing what we're doing and being good ambassadors and bringing other people with us. If each one of us brings 4 people like us to the races every time we go, people are going to catch on, and people are going to figure it out. And if we can convert one of those 4 every time we make it, we're doing something really special. So, I think it's our folks being great ambassadors, as we've all kind of seen what Patrick's done, what Saul's done, what Jamie's done. That's what it's all about. It's us being ambassadors of the sport.
Okay.
I think Patrick alluded to it before, but we also have to be very creative as an industry to figure out how we can get people access to the horses, maximize those fractional experiences. Not just my race horse, but any fractional experience. I mean, trial is fundamentally how you're going to start anything. You don't make your first VC investment with your 100% of your bankroll. You start small, you get involved. So fractional ownership is the gateway to get people involved at any level. And I think fractional ownership comes with a lot of challenges in terms of getting access to all the privileges that come with it, getting access to the horse. You can't commoditize owning a racehorse by just watching the races on your phone or on a TV. You got to get out there and be participatory. So it's just going to take some creativity, I think, as an industry and as entrepreneurs to ensure that we can give people access to the best parts of ownership, which is some of these physical privileges.
Okay.
And Gary, I would jump in there real quick. And I think like the team said that real quick is very spot on. And sorry if I'm not on video, my laptop actually ran out of battery. But, I think we've all thought a lot about this question, and it's because we all care so much. And, personally, this is a family business. It is now a friend business. And so it's something that, I wake up to thinking about and certainly go to bed thinking about. And, the way I've broken it down is into kind of just 3 quick thoughts. I mean, I think for one, we got to make the flow to ownership a lot easier. I think we brought up fingerprinting as one of a myriad of different issues that I feel like could be certainly improved within this, space. I think from an experience standpoint, Michael touched upon it. Like there are so many little things that we can do to make the experience, really, really fun. Think about what Top Golf has done, and it's a $4 billion business. And the racing product, in my opinion, is night and day better than swinging around a horrible stick in the nighttime at little, pins. And I would say racing gives you a different feeling. You're around animals, which we all love. And so just putting a lot of thought into the day-to-day experience, whether it's the Kentucky Derby or a Thursday, there are things that certainly we can do. And then finally, I would just say, perception. And I think Jamie hit upon this one a ton earlier, in that this industry does have kind of two negative thoughts that I think are not correct, but I think there's ways in which we can counteract them. And one is this idea that, horses aren't taken care of. And, one of the things that I really focus on in any new owner I bring, or any potential new person or owner I bring to the track, is bring them back to the barn area, show them how much these horses are loved, show them how well kept they are, show them how happy they look each and every day, and how much they love to run is certainly something that resonates with me, but finding a way to scale that to the masses is extremely important. And then finally, from a perception standpoint, is just this idea that this is not an industry that you only can participate in is if you have a ton of money or if you are a certain demographic. And I think Michael and the concept around My Racehorse, and certainly what others are doing in the micro share community, is exactly what we need for this industry to have different types of people than what typically looks like at the owner's table at the Kentucky Derby, who's winning the Kentucky Derby. So kind of a long-winded answer, but obviously it's one that hits home for me and certainly is extremely important.
Okay, very good. One last question we'll have a little fun with. If you could have ownership in any horse in training today, other than one of your own, what horse would that be? Jamie.
Without a doubt, and it might be kind of random, I'm not sure what other people think, but Clariere. She's a grade 1 winner, out of a grade 1 winner. They both won the same grade 1. And I keep bringing it up because we primarily are breeders, but that ain't easy to do. Now, Stone Street has made it seem a little bit easier than most, but man, the pedigree that has run through those families, it's invaluable. And it's a goal of mine. We haven't had a grade 1 winner out of a homebred yet, but hopefully, knock on wood, that may be the case someday. But that's, I just have so much respect for her and for Stone Street. I think she's an amazing horse.
Okay, good answer. So how about you?
I mean, it's hard to not say Flightline after watching that performance this past weekend. I was out at Del Mar. I mean, that was breathtaking. It was pretty unbelievable. So horses been campaigned well and as fast as I've seen.
All right, Patrick.
Yeah, it's hard to not go with Flightline. Certainly going to be a tough one for Charlie if we're lucky enough to run in the Breeders' Cup Classic in November. But, one that is kind of outside the box that I have a ton of respect for is Nest. I think obviously a great filly. I've always had a soft spot for fillies, and if they have a sporting interest to potentially run against some of the boys, I think it'd be great for the sport. And then it'd be great to have Nest be a potentially future potential mate to Charlie in future years.
There you go. Okay. How about you, Michael?
I mean, Flightline, that was breathtaking. I've seen it so many freaking times today, but we just launched in the UK. So there's a horse over there by Eid that has been just absolutely crushing it. The most beautiful turn of foot I've seen. It's spectacular. So if you haven't seen the replays, watch the Juddmonte, the turn of foot is just unbelievable. Just been crushing unbelievably good horses. And it's pretty electric to watch.
Very neat. Okay, Gary.
Obviously, everyone said Flightline, but having seen Olympiad, Jamie, a nod to you. I've seen him at Fairgrounds twice. I saw him at Churchill twice. He's a horse that I've been around and been able to see up close and personal. And I think Bill has him going the right direction, and that's a horse that's gonna make some noise in the Classic. And he's just a super cool horse that I've seen personally 4 or 5 times in each of the races here in the Midwest, and kind of a horse that's come through my ranks or near me. So he's been one we've been fond of and appreciate him here at both Churchill and Fairgrounds. So it's been good to see him up close and personal, and nice to see him check that grade 1 box. That helps us.
We got a great answer. Yes. Hey, thanks again for all of our panelists. Michael, Mike Penn, I'll let you take it from here.
Thank you, Gary, and thanks to everybody who took time to be with us here this afternoon. It was a lot of fun. First and foremost, thanks to all of our partners here, all of our panelists who took time, Michael Behrens, Jamie Roth, Gary Palmazzano, Patrick O'Neill, and Saul Kuman. Really do appreciate it. Thank you so much, everyone. It was fun. It was a lot of fun. Thanks to our panel sponsors, Equiloom and My Racehorse, and most of all, thanks to every owner out there, because without you, we don't have a sport. So we really do appreciate you supporting the sport of thoroughbred racing and putting up your money and working so hard to build this sport. We're going to be back next month with another panel. It is jockeys and their agents. Should be pretty fun. It'll be one you won't want to miss. But until then, stay safe and visit the Winner's Circle often. Thanks for being with us.